One of the things that I have always loved about being an artist is being able to be in front of a blank canvas and be in that place of receptivity, unknowing, not having a real clue about what the end point is. The end point is not what's really important. It's that process. It's that absolute ecstasy of being in that, to play with all the different variations of energy and light and, intuition and creative spirit and, whatever, and the materials to be God, to be close to God and to be God, the creative beingness.
And welcome back to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing. And what a wonderful, whimsical day it is today. The present moment is always the most potent self-realization. And today is that very day. And I want to welcome to the podcast Gail and Gregory Hoag, who are masters and wisdom teachers of sacred geometry and have been on this path of self-realization and teaching for a long time within this biological clock. So I'm very, very grateful to have these incredible teachers to the podcast. Welcome, my dear friends.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you. Glad to be here with you, son.
Yes, thank you for the invitation. We have been doing this for over 40 years, so it's wild.
It is wild, right? I had another dear friend of mine, Lee Carroll, who channels Cryon. I don't know whether you're familiar with him.
Oh, yes. Sure, yeah.
And he's like, you seem to forget how long you've been doing this. I'm like, I don't know, 30 plus years. He goes, now, when did you start? It's like 87. It's 37 years, son. I'm like, wow, that's a long ass time to be aware of your own self. And so, time just is always a testament to perhaps wisdom or not. It really depends on the individual and what you're doing with your own creation. My children remind me that time is continuing to some degree. 1 minute they're just being born and they're in my hands. The next minute my eldest son is like turning 13 and my youngest is just turned 1, and fantastic, amazing events. So
yes.
why don't we use these ingredients, guys, and start sharing with our audience, perhaps maybe a little abbreviated version of how you got here and how you got into this incredible teaching and have been enlightening people for so many decades.
Well, San Qing, it's a spiritual journey and has been all kinds of ways that we found ourselves in this were beyond, the normal ways of growing up in Western physical society. And so it was really about listening to our inner voice and having experiences that kind of shook us up as well. I had a near-death experience when I was in my late teens, early 20s, that time of life. And it showed me that everything was so much more than what I had thought. When I was going down the tunnel and I could see that light, I realized at that point that I had a choice. And I heard the voice that said, there's more for you. There's more that you can be in this life if you choose. And so I had to come back in and really choose and pull my body back in to the physical, pull my energy back into the physical body and go through a healing process. And so, that startled me in a way that showed me that life was so much more than that. And so I had to start recovering those different aspects of who I am. I spent a lot of my earlier years as an artist really looking into nature and wondering, pondering, what is this reality? What is it that we're doing with all this? And one of the mentors for me was Buckminster Fuller. And he's the one who created the geodesic dome and all kinds of things around the tetrahedron geometry. He was absolutely a brilliant philosopher as well. And I absorbed all of his books, loved it. And he taught me so much about geometry that brought me into another way of looking at the world. And many years later, when Gregory and I met in 1985, he was carrying around these wonderful geometries that he had created, and they were all filled with these different tetrahedrons. And I said, well, you must know the work of Buckminster Fuller. And he said, no, never heard of him. And I said, well, you need to. Well, at that point, it had been a couple of years before that Fuller had transitioned, left his body. And I was working as a channel. So I just asked and said, look, I know that your consciousness is still there. I'd love to continue to learn from you. And so after a number of meditative practices with that, I found that he came to me and started teaching me. And there was so much that he taught me that was beyond what I could understand because I didn't have a background in science and math. So I said, look, either bring me someone that I can do something with this about, or let's just tap this down. And it was probably within the next week or two that Gregory and I found each other, bumped into each other in a garage, and I invited him to come learn more about what Fuller's messages were about. And so that's what brought us together and kind of brought me into this specific journey of sacred geometry that we've been doing together for the last 40 years.
Wow.
And for me, after I graduated in 1970 from college, along with some other businesses, I was pursuing enlightenment. I was working with different Eastern masters, and it culminated with a pyramid that I built with a friend in the late 70s that cost over, well, in today's dollars, it would be close to $250,000. And it set off my Kundalini. And so that energy of the earth started pouring through me. And that's what opened me up to the visions that were being shared with me of these different geometries, of the way the earth and the sun, the moon, everything dances together around certain patterns and rhythms and cycles. And I was being shown those cycles, and I was building them and the rhythms and the patterns. And so that's what I was carrying around in the box when Gail met me. And it was actually in my car, and we were in a garage that I had sold the house, and she'd been invited to paint there by the new owner. And so universe brought us together, and we were both very sensitive to the energy we were feeling from these tools. And that's what we've been refining for the last 40 years, is a way for human beings to expand their level of consciousness, to expand their level of awareness beyond the 3D physical realm into the higher dimensional realities, and all the way up to soul, to be able to have soul flow through into the physical personality and be able to support us in bringing in more love and more consciousness for the benefit and the good of all.
Wow. Wow. Isn't that a wonderful, inspiring realization, which most people tend to contemplate, but it's never realized. It's more conceptual, which is where people lean on information, but they're not experiencing it as you have been for some decades, and then imbuing that and then printing that and admitting that into what would be a general distortion, which is we call this reality. forming, unity, which we like to call the primordial mother, is the presentation and representation of merging everything as one. And then all of a sudden you have, as you put it, this ascended state beyond your 3D reality, creating miracles, manifestation, magic, all these types of things. And I think that's the potency of what you guys are teaching through the lens of these geometric shapes, and they have their own unique frequency and potency that pulls the experience of the practitioner into an alignment that will show itself from an experiential moment that it is a knowing. Because I think most important is repeatable stuff, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's one of the beautiful things with sacred geometry. Whether you go out into a beautiful, serene place in nature where you're resonating with the natural, the universe of sacred geometry, everything has that rhythm and cycle and pattern in a way that when you are quiet, when you are just listening to the sound of the river or the breezes and experiencing how light dances on the grasses and flowers around you, you are so close to that oneness, that unity. Well, with our work over all these years, what it's really been focused on is bringing that geometric patterning into people's homes, offices, all kinds of spaces, healing spaces, meditation spaces. So you can go beyond the distortions of this 3D physical world and more easily connect with those higher realms of who we are. And remember who we are, that we are multidimensional beings that get so fixated on the, what physical world offers us. It's mesmerizing. But if you don't go beyond this physical, then all you've done is tap into just a fraction of who you are and what's here for us. And so the geometries are openings, they're portals for us. And in a lot of ways, they kind of speed up the process too, because we are in that flow that helps us be more of who we are. And then we can continue that expansion in a more conscious way.
San, when Gail was saying, and we have this sense that the physical world is sometimes something we need to transcend and leave. And yet what happens with that connection with higher self, that connection with unity that we're all working for, is it expands the experience of the 3D physical. It isn't like we need to leave this life in order to experience enlightenment, but we bring that higher vibrational form of light into our 3D experience so that everything starts expanding in our perception of love coming through, not just when we're in nature, which Gail was starting to talk about. I mean, that's some place where we get the sense of, oh, this feels so good. And yet we spend most of our time in offices or work or in our daily lives where we can bring that experience to bear in that life in such a way that we never have to leave that field of vibration, that field of clarity, that field of love that allows us to share more with everyone that we're interacting with, which is ultimately our opportunity. Our greatest opportunity is to expand love in this dimension, to expand consciousness and joy, which is that high vibrational understanding of what it's like to be dancing in the light with nature and to be dancing in the light every moment, every breath. And then this life becomes more and more meaningful and of something that we're very happy to be here and have this experience, regardless of how the world is trying to present itself, because we can look through a lens that allows us to see the truth behind the politics, the truth behind the separation, the truth behind all the difficulties. It's really each one an opportunity to see the merging of something higher that wants to express itself through these different avenues that put us in a space when we are, coming from that view into a space of, oh, thank you for this opportunity. This being that opportunity comes in, that action, that thing that's going on, it's just reinforcing my opportunity to see it from a higher perspective.
That huge step that you take. You guys had me at hello. I love that. It brings in sort of a fundamental understanding of what the nature of reality is. I mean, there are a million ways up the mountain. Once you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own. Evidence is the only thing you have to define your own absolute truth. If someone comes to you with an absolute truth, I suggest about facing and running in the other direction. It's the evidence from your experience that will determine that. And that's what I love with the potency. Like, we're experiencing what some of my parapsychologist friends would call psychokinesis. There is a substance, there's a unity, we're communing together, and through that, there's a vibratory effect that we're both receiving, as I like to call the physical flesh that looks back at you in the mirror. The 50 trillion cells are speaking to you as this barometer, this tuning fork of your reality. It's deciphering what is the divinity code and transmuting it into said evidence. And this is how we get this, right? I mean, if we look at this from a, let's say a physicist's perspective, Taoism is like this. Light to wave to matter to particle, realize with your attention, intention, cutting from the cloth of perfection, the primordial mother, and creating what we call, my Buddhist monk friends like to call, dukkha, distortion. This is the currency of this state, this realm. We call it material within Taoism. It's called electromagnetism. This is the currency, energy potential. And energy potential is vibratory, frequential, and ultimately holds resonance. And so everything has resonance. Whatever you are looking to focus your attention on, being the most valuable commodity, applying that, being able to hold that resonance, oh, yes, it will be yours. Oh, yes, it will. This is where this incredible tools, these ancient tools that you've been teaching people for so many decades consciously, are so absolutely valuable to the seeker, to the practitioner, because you will see evidence instantaneously. I love having a conversation with someone and go, all right, this is fantastic. I noticed there's 4 vortices, there's a grid line, there's a power center over here and here and here in your property. And they're like, what are you talking about? Go over to this point, use your tuning forks, you're attuned, and we're feeling this heightened energy right now as it starts to surge through our body. We feel it as a tuning fork. That communion, that charge and expansion is evidence that the 3 of us are picking up what we're putting down, and we know this to be true. This is the said evidence. And so when they go over there with their eyes open, without singing Kumbaya, calling in their angels, lighting 3 incense, sitting in the lotus position, they're experiencing this visceral experience. It is real. They're like, holy crap, this is really here. This is real. And then the charge you and I are getting right now, I love that charge. It's like, aha, I'm over here. I see you. I feel you. This is the truth. And there's nothing more powerful than the stuff that you guys are teaching people. And then imbuing that into pieces of artwork that people can hold with them to maintain and hold that resonance through their physical body. The mastery we like to call bringing immortality, crystallizing it into the material state. That's what we call it in Taoism. And I believe that is exactly what you guys are doing. I would love you to expand on that.
Yeah. So some of boy, there's a lot of different places that I can go with all of this.
Yeah.
But I think one of the little side trips I'd like to make is that here we are, physical beings, souls that have chosen to incarnate into a physical vessel. For what? For what? What are we here doing? Well, we're here, just like you're saying, experiencing, learning, playing with this reality. When you think about, going back to watching children, a brand new soul coming into this little physical body is learning and experiencing and expressing and attempting to communicate in so many different ways to be able to interact with this domain, this physical reference point. And, it's an interesting thing that embodied in this process is that there's work to be done. When a child is born, when any being is born to a mammal, it goes through some process of labor. Isn't that an interesting word, labor? What is labor? Labor is like good work, right? It's what it takes, the process to go from one place to another, from perhaps just a vision to a reality. And that labor is something that we are designed with our bodies and our minds and our neurological system and this capacity for creativity. We're designed to be able to move through this in a way where we can reach into the cupboards of who we really are, those vast realms, and bring it here. That's what is so precious in the creative process. One of the things that I have always loved about being an artist is being able to be in front of a blank canvas and be in that place of receptivity, unknowing, not having a real clue about what the end point is. The end point is not what's really important. It's that process. It's that absolute ecstasy of being in that, to play with all the different variations of energy and light and, intuition and creative spirit and, whatever, and the materials to be God, to be close to God and to be God, the creative beingness. And so, that is, I think, what's so amazing, in this modern society. I was listening to a very interesting podcast yesterday. And, they were talking about parenting in this age of social media. And social media is impressing these children with so many different, denting them in certain ways, impressing them in certain ways to fit into, whatever the social system is. And what children really need is the opportunity to fail, to explore, to fall when they're learning to walk and skin their knee and learn what that means. And that process of humanity is really precious. And we forget sometimes the importance of that friction, that ability to go through so many different variations in order to find who we are and what we're created for. And so the more that we can display in all of this, the better it is for all of us.
Also, there was something you said, Sanchi, about us impressing something onto these tools, which does happen. I mean, they're interactive. So our intent, our focus gets reflected on a higher vibrational level through these geometries, the things that, like what I'm wearing and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the reason there is a real value in looking at everything we're building as a tool is to go into something. I'm going to share with you some of the images that I have here available to us, such as what we have here is everything from a nautilus shell to broccoli spirals,
Mm-hmm.
sunflower, and a galaxy, spiral galaxy itself. And these particular aspects of creation are reflecting the way the human body is built, with taking these different measures on the human body, say from the head to the navel to the feet, which is similar to the very famous Vitruvian Man that was given to us by Leonardo da Vinci. But back to this being here, we are following certain geometric patterns. And when we start looking at the universe in a broader sense, we see something like a harmonics of resonance, which is similar to the vibration of a C tone starting a C tuning fork to vibrate. So by working with something physical like a C tuning fork, we can bring in a vibrational frequency that will cause it to vibrate through sound itself. And yet, when you look at things like the diameter of the moon in miles, 2,160, in time, 2,160 years is equivalent to one zodiacal sign. And a cube is made up of 2,160 degrees. When we add up the 90-degree corners of one face, we get 360, and then 6 faces, that's the total. So you see a cube, time, and the moon are all in a particular resonant frequency. And that's how universe operates. So when we start working with some of these patterns and tools, like all the platonic solids, there are 5 of them. They all have a certain number of degrees on their faces when we add them up. And when we look at something like adding them up a certain number, give us the diameter of the sun. We can add up the degrees on another group of platonic solids, translating it into miles, we get the exact diameter of the Earth. So what I'm saying is that universe works with these patterns. And in our new book, which is, I'll share with you.
By the way, what's the diameter of the sun and the earth?
Added together?
Well, now, what is the number?
Okay, the diameter of
Yeah.
the sun is 864,000 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take the number of degrees in those platonic solids I showed you, the tetrahedron, the octahedron, and the dodecahedron, you get 8,640 times 100 gives you the diameter of the sun. You see, frequencies can be resonant even though you add more zeros or take away zeros, because they are still working with the same root number. The other place we see where numbers are harmonic that may appear different are when we're multiplying or dividing by 2. That's like going up an octave. You multiply the frequencies of middle C, you get twice that. You jump an octave and you get the next higher level of C. And it resonates with the same C tone. And so what I'm saying is the Earth's diameter, by the way, 7,920 miles. And if you go to Wikipedia, it's going to be about 20 miles or so, 16 miles more than that. But if you were able to squish the Earth into a smooth ball, take all the highs, the lows, then you would have 7,920 miles as the exact diameter, because that's the archetype. That's the perfection. And it's just like every oak tree follows the archetype of the oak tree, and yet all oak trees look a little different. There's choice. There's freedom of choice in this dimension, which allows you and I, even though we are so vibrationally similar as human beings, we look different, we act a little different, we have all these variations because universe, it just revels in free will and choice of allowing us each to take the archetype of being and stretch it into all its variations for the learning of what can you do with the archetype and play. And so working with those different aspects, if I were to take something, let me show you something else. As we go further, this is our book, Sacred Geometry, the Universal Language of Divine Alignment. And what can I do? Here, if you take the diameter of the moon plus the diameter of the Earth and transform it into degrees, you have 10,080 degrees, which is this geometry sitting next to me. So this geometry, it
Can you
plays.
pick it up because it's not really
It's so
in the screen.
okay.
There you go.
There we go.
There we go. This geometry is playing with certain dimensions that give us the phi ratio, which is the way the body is created. That person I showed you and the Vitruvian Man of Leonardo's, he's following the pattern that is set out in this geometry. The moon, the way it dances with the earth in their diameters, and there are many other ways I can show you the way the moon and the earth work together to create that same phi ratio. They dance with that archetype. They dance with the archetype of life. So when we bring this geometry into our environment, it's resonating with that higher archetype, that higher truth. And so just like a C tuning fork that takes the invisible tone of middle C, and all of a sudden we've got vibration in the tuning fork. When you bring this kind of a geometry into your environment, you start vibrating with this field a little more. Just the way when you're in nature, sitting next to the stream, as Gail was describing, you start vibrating with the nature around you. The negative ions created by the wind breeze going through the pine needles of the trees around you, it starts bringing in those different frequencies that you're breathing in, those negative ions, and your body starts to be elevated to another sensory level of being. And that's the nature of working with these tools, is it allows us to start to vibrate at another level of sensory beingness, so that we can start to be a little more open to fourth dimensional realities that exist through the etheric field around us. Some people tune into those levels and we call them psychics. Some people can see the aura around us and see the colors and see our emotions. That's moving into another dimension. Some people can start to foretell the future. That's moving into a fifth dimensional reality. Their body has been able to vibrate, take in a higher field of energy that allows them to move beyond time and space in the usual way of being. And that's what starts happening with these tools. It moves us into a field of beingness that enhances what we already have, but takes it to a level of refinement that allows us to start dancing with a new level of light and love coming through us.
Amen to that, my dear friend.
All right, all right, all
On
right.
board. I feel like you're about to get a heads up on your an initiation as honorary Taoist in this conscious lifetime. It's powerful, the symbiosis of yin and yang, and furthermore, when we look at reality, when you're speaking these things, it's so refreshing, it's so exciting, because this is everywhere. Now, for a Taoist, reality is set by the simplicity of everything is a bellows. You are contracting and expanding at the same time. You're all things and nothing at the same time. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, Ethan Hunt, is to find that center point, what some would refer to as the Vesica. We refer to it as the Wu Ji, the primordial mother, the substance, the animation behind the consciousness. And that's that unity of yin and yang, that merging of those two completely polar opposite energies within this material state. And so when it transmutes and it has that tango, that dance from primordial mother to consciousness, the primordial mother animates the consciousness consciousness animates the spirit animates the energy animates the body. And here we have, at a subatomic level, this dance that is happening instantaneously between yin and yang in this material state. We have what we transmute as another tool. Our potency within the number 9 is the highest point. That highest point is a point of completion. Everything is happening as you contract and expand all day, every day. You are experiencing this moment of completion and then rebirth. And that is accessible to anyone at will. That Vesica is the merging of the two, realizing that what will end will begin again. And the potential of that is up to the practitioner, the person that's on that journey of self-realization. And furthermore, through that resonance, you can obtain that access. And so the 9, I always tell this to any polymath, any genius in the world, the 9 is the evidence of everything. It is the highest number, the highest point of potency revealed. So the 9 is the only number that can be 1 or 0. It can be all things or nothing, returning back to the bellows effect, the contracting and expanding that is this very now moment, that just validates all the things that you were just experiencing and talking about in the lens of sacred geometry. All those numbers, when you hit that point, if you add up the numbers within the planet, the earth, the sun, the moon, they all return back to the 18, or furthermore the 9, which is the reflection of yin and yang, which is the reflection of the opposing 9 as completion to rebirth. So when you merge 2 9s together, you form the 18, which is the evidence within every single metrics that you represented today here from across the globe. That potency is evident in everything, and you create infinity. You're abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. And this is sort of like a path of a Tao, that charge we're getting right now. Oh, yeah, we're in it. We're a community. We are unified, my dear friends. This is, well, how do I know this? Well, I see it with my eyes and I experience it if I choose to. Again, coming back to that potency and access of clairvoyance, which is part of what we call it sensory perception. So I've been teaching people clairvoyance, mediumship, channeling, healing, all that kind of stuff under the guise of the old dusty Taoist priest that sort of rambles on about Tao Te Ching and a few other things that might be on a physiological or a psychology level, or furthermore, something that's a philosophy, but it's actually an embodiment. And this potency that you're speaking of, when you tune that resonance, we imbue things. I do this quite often when it comes to, we have a portal that I give access to. It literally will turn someone's life upside down. When they take possession of it, it's like you're in, Pulp Fiction. Have you ever seen that movie where they open the
Yes.
case, the old light comes out? This is what I'm experiencing with all your tools, right? I confess, full disclosure, I'm sampling everything that you are sharing right now, and I'm high as a kite. I am absolutely high as you can get, because these are transmissions and resonance, and that charge we're getting right now is another indicator, because it's a surge and an inversion of yin, and then it expands, and it feels like this gold dust that is infinite, that will give you that heat and that rush and that oscillation, the reverberation of that energy, because this is the dance that we're taking all day, every day. And it's so potent. I feel like a lot of people for clairvoyant senses, they get a taste of what we call the spiritual dragon, and they don't actualize. And what were you referring to is so potent, what you were saying, Gail. When it comes to the child, you must embody the physicality. This is the entry level to anyone's self-realization. If they do not feel into the tactile effects of the flesh against resistance, which is meeting the yang with the yin, is inverting that, is feeling into that. This is where a lot of psychic people stay here and here. They stay here and here, and they're like, I'm very intuitive, and I feel everything. I'm an empath. I'm a psychic, and these are fantastic self-realizations. The fundamental issue is they're not activating their whole energy potential, and when they don't activate their whole energy potential, they get trapped. And furthermore, they become more and more inverted with this yin energy, which will present itself in what we call mortality, or a limited journey within this material state. Immortality is completely possible. And quite frankly, anyone breathing right now should be very comfortable at living to the ripe old age of 120, 150 with no problems whatsoever. That's just with today's awareness. But that physical state, I always tell my children, you must feel into your body, because that activates the connection between the earth and then the energy body. So you're stepping from the physical body into the energy body instantaneously, activating those sensory perceptions. And so when you feel it, you want to know what it feels like to be from one extreme to another, to be yin or yang, and then enter back into what we call the elasticity of that yin, which is really, most people go, well, yin is just the primordial mother. It's a feminine divine energy. No, the void is the womb of creation, and the reflection of the mother is this byproduct, the electromagnetism. This is the evidence of what is potential within this material state. So creation comes from the animation, and then we get inverted effects or admission of something grand, which is the colors, all the colors, everything we're talking about. I'm just like, yeah, I'll take more of that. Thank you, guys. Just give.
So we lost you. We got kicked out of here.
This is what people don't understand, is you're bringing a potency of resonance in that is perfection in what we call Taoism, the diamond of perfection. And so they have to be met with the electromagnetism. So you are bringing in perfection. Whenever I give someone an imbued portal, they take it to their house and they're like, oh, I feel amazing, I'm incredible. And then their whole family turns on them, because it's a high frequency, and they have to be met with that. If they don't understand what's going on, they believe it's an external thing. It's not an internal thing. I'd love you guys to share that with the audience, because it's so potent what you're putting out. It's like there should be a little bit of a cautionary realization that you bring this stuff into your reality, but your environment must be met with a little bit of an education of this potency, because if not, you're going to be met with a few struggles or challenges. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the name of this game too. There's a word that I like to talk about sometimes. It's called perturbation. In that, from an understanding of physics, when the energy gets aroused and it's like shaking up, it will um, it will blast off to a whole nother level that you may not be able to predict. It's not necessarily like this nice little uh, um, wave that we're on. An example that I like to share is that back in 2013, there was an enormous flood that our land that we were where we live was um, really significantly changed from this enormous flood. And we'd seen rains come in, and we live on a big piece of land that is right. There's a river that sort of edges the land, and it's a small river that would dry up at times. And so at that time in 2013, we had been in a drought, and it was dry. It was like a dried up little mud puddle. And we'd seen, rains come in, and the river would come in and just flood the land, and then it would recede. But what we'd never seen before was when there was a whole nother level, a whole nother magnitude, that what it did was they called it the 10,000 year flood. It radically changed the geography of the land. We now were on a 30-foot cliff, and the river was now this raging river like nothing that we had seen before. And it completely shifted and, just morphed this land into a whole nother level. And so, there was a part of my reality that thought, well, that's not the way I thought things would evolve. I thought they would kind of evolve more gradually over time, over, tens of thousands of years. And that's the way things would change. But that's not necessarily true. There are certain pivotal points where the energy is such that there is a radical change that happens. And our opportunity is, how are we going to deal with it? Are we going to say, oh my God, it's not the way it used to be? We have a neighbor across the river that's still trying to get his land to look like it was when he was a child, and he wants to have the land look like it was for his daughter. Well, that's ridiculous. We have an opportunity in all the amazing transformative energies that we're involved with right now to embrace it, to say, okay, how do I interact with this? Where is my place within it? How do I take this 9 that we came to and not try to just, easily come back down the scale again, but now we're in a whole different octave. How do we work with that? And so that, I think, is a beautiful part of our conversation that is so important right now, and how sacred geometry really restores some understanding for us is to know that, like, as we talked about resonance and whether the number is 864 or 864,000, and that all comes to 9 one way or another. But the point really is that there's resonance between these different levels that we're in. The same cycles and precision and the sequences are the same. These ratios are the same, but now we can play with it with a whole nother level of vibration and color. Now what? That's where we are now. And that is what is so exquisite, so extraordinary about the time that we are, that we've chosen to be in. that we're incarnated into this absolutely amazing time. And we do have the tools. And that's what is also important for us to know that.
Well, it's that. Oops. My apologies. I thought I had that on silent. I'll cut that out. Don't worry.
No problem.
I just want to say this because you're handing off this perfection. And I want the audience to understand that even entry level, you're going to have a self-realization. Your body will be activated. You mentioned Kundalini. We refer to it as infinite Wu Qi Jing body. And that is an activation of the flesh realized through the animation of energy. And basically you turn on the cosmos. So this will take place. Your development of sensory perception will be kind of given a crash course, because you'll start to see it fundamentally within the body or the mind. Hey, well, I was feeling really good around this thing. When I'm not around it, I can sort of feel deficiency. Or furthermore, I'm noticing that all the things that are inverted within my own reality, the things that I want to avoid, the things that I don't want to experience, are starting to present themselves. It's almost like I cannot resist it anymore, because the resonance is requiring the participant to move with that resonance, to sustain it. And I think a lot of people don't have the physicality to hold that resonance. That's why within Taoism we condition, adapt, stress, adapt, and condition the container to hold that resonance. What would you guys suggest someone going, oh, well, I want this thing, I want to fast forward? Everyone wants to fast forward their experience. And I just warn them that, acquiring one of these tools is fantastic, but you must understand you're getting the completion of this resonance. It's now yours. But if you haven't conditioned yourself to it, there could be problematic effects. What would you suggest?
Don't take it personally.
Yeah. It's like Harry Potter being given the magical wand to everything. It's a lot, It's
really, but we're doing this all the time right now in our lives. It's like the frequencies, San, as you know, are shifting on the planet. They're higher and higher frequencies that are coming in, and people are experiencing these frequencies, and what they have a tendency to do is to bring forward those issues within us that are blocking them from fully blossoming in our lives. So wherever we're holding those fears, those aspects of our beingness, those aspects of our personality that are getting angry, that are getting sad, that are getting all these different negative emotions, they block that higher frequency from coming through. And yet those higher frequencies are trying to get them out of the way by bringing them up so we can deal with them. So I'd say a lot of it is not just with our tools. They will certainly put it in a fast forward way, but they also, for example, I told you about something I was wearing. This is what it is that I'm wearing. It has two sides, because one side, like in this case, the side on the right, which has a Vesica Pisces in the middle. And the importance of the Vesica Pisces is it connects us to Earth Mother. It connects us to that union of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. Those two archetypes come together to form a divine womb, if you wish, and that's the Vesica Pisces. It gives birth to everything in creation. It is the third element, and 3 is at the basis of all creation. All sacred numbers. 9 is nothing without 3 squared. 9 is just a form of 3 squared. 6 is the holder for all time and space. And yet it's 3 plus 3. So 3 is at the basis of creation. And what bursts 3 is 1 and 2. And 1 is the divine masculine that is their source underlying everything. But you divide any number by 1 and you get the same number again. You multiply any number by 1 and you have the same number. It's like, wait a minute, 1 times 5 is 5. Where's the 1? The 1 source is hidden within everything. It's not until it separates and reflects into 2, and 2 is the feminine aspect. It's the doorway to higher self. It's the doorway to unity. It is the mother. It is what is birthing everything in this dimension. It has been given a bad rap, especially in Western society, where they see the snake as the double-ended bad guy that spoke to Eve, the feminine aspect, and invited her into the world of duality. But it's duality, the good and evil, the right and wrong, the black and white. But in Taoist philosophy, it's not a separation. It's a yin and yang. It's part of the whole that is always flowing in and out of itself. And inside the purest aspect of white, there is a dot of black, and vice versa. Within black, within the darkness, there is always the light at the center. And so it is that the expression of the feminine is what gives us this reality. And in one sense, we can look at it as something that has the opportunity to force us into good and evil, but we can ride the middle path and go into a space where, like I said earlier, don't take it personally. That's one of the biggest issues we have as human beings. We get personally involved in this character and all the shit that's happening to it. It's like we define it and we say, oh no, this is my reality. But we have a choice to always look at it from a little higher perspective, a little higher perspective. And with some of these tools, like this one that I'm wearing, it feels good. That's what a lot of people seem to express first. It just feels good. And it brings them into a space like one gentleman, he and his wife, they were in their late 70s, early 80s. They both bought pendants and they came back later and to buy something else. And he leaned over and said, what I love about the pendant is my wife doesn't yell at me as much anymore. And she overheard us and said, I don't have to. They both had shifted their realities vibrationally and were interpreting it from a different perspective. So it's like whether we have these tools or don't have these tools, each one of us, moment by moment, has free will choice to look at what universe is giving us. And we can look for, in that darkness, in that difficulty, the speck of light, the speck of God, the speck of truth that we can focus on and allow it to grow. So we see the purpose behind the sadness I'm feeling now, if that's what I'm going through. We can see something that will help us climb out of that space into a higher vibrational space. And that's always our choice. And when we're presented with new tools, new things in our lives, it's going to shake us up. I mean, that's what this whole world is meant to do. It's meant to shake us up so that we can let things fall apart and then rebuild and rearrange in a way that allows us to be a little better, a little more perfectly constructed. We know that perfection is within us. At least we've been told that. We hear that. That's the new age thing to do. But as you said earlier, let's take it out of just here and here and expand it. Let's not let it just be a mental thing. Let's allow it to move into a space of practical expression. That means, okay, I'm not feeling so good at the moment. What can I learn? Please, I can sit in meditation, see if something comes to me. If nothing comes to me, I can keep living my life as I would like to live it, which is a little more fun, a little more clear, a little more loving. I'm not going to let the woes of the world of the 3D reality, which, in Taoist understanding is illusion, but spirit speaks through illusion. Love speaks through illusion. It's there all the time in our illusion. We have to go behind the illusion to find it. That's why it's illusion. It's not that God, spirit, source, love isn't there in our lives. It's just being masked. It's just having a form that we don't recognize. So we have an opportunity. That's the fun. That's the game. That's the joy. Just like your children, the one that's 1, the one that's 13, and all of them in between. They're playing games, learning what it's like to be an adult. And here we are, adults, learning what it's like to be conscious beings. And that's our opportunity. We have to play at it. And if we understand that it's play, if we understand that our lives can be fun and joyful, even the stuff that's dark and negative or doesn't feel so good, it's like, how can I learn something from this? How can I turn it into a game? How can I not take it so personally that it knocks me around? That means I'm the victim. That means I'm not in control. That's a lie. We have the power within us to be the creator of our environment. So we say, why did I create this darkness? It must be for a reason. I will find that reason. And when I find it, I'm going to grow it, because that reason is love. That reason is helping me expand my life in a way that I haven't experienced yet. And I want to experience that now.
Mm. Yeah, now it's interesting you say that, because when you realize that reality is just nothing more than a bellows, and then you find that center point, referring to the trilogy, we refer to it as the sun, the earth, the moon. Our 3 teachers, supreme purity, J purity, highest purity, they all reside within what we call dantians, the energy elixir field within the physical flesh that attunes reality. That trifecta is always returned back to the 3 treasures we call the pituitary, pineal, and thalamus. These are all evidence-based realizations, but that center point of returning is childlike in your nature. And so the idea to grow up, to return, is unnecessary. I've never witnessed a physical healing, a mental, emotional, spiritual healing that required my participation. It's a now moment. It's not the past or the future. It's now. And that's a resonance. And this is where people get consumed by the infantile sort of consumerism of the narcissistic, egoic state of identity. Their need, I get students all the time going, Jiffer, well, why are we here? And I'm like, why not? And they're like, well, but no, I need to I need a greater understanding of what that means. And then if I ask my teacher, Latsu, that I've been channeling for 36 years, he instantly goes into, imagine you're like a grain of sand, asking the beach, what are we doing today? Fall back into the beach and be realized. That simplicity, I can't make this stuff up. I always remind him, thank you for making me look semi intelligent or somewhat not more than a bag of rocks, which is what I confess to have which is nothing, is that wisdom teaching. It all refers back to this, again, this effect, and bringing it back into that center point, which we referred to before as the Wu Ji, the primordial mother, the animation, the void behind all these things. Yin and yang is the simplicity of it. We don't refine it as a good or bad or up or down or in or out. It's up to the experiencer to transmute that from a mental, psychological state to that self-realization. 30 years ago, I'd have people coming to me with psychological disorders that would be in the gateway of, I don't know, bipolar, schizophrenia, whatever. Once exercised and liberated that energy that they would perceive as something more daunting, all of a sudden, this is a liberation. Back in those days, you call it an exorcism. These days, I wake up, I'm channeling the Palladians, the next minute I've got a YouTube channel with 100,000 followers. I love the vast difference. And you've probably witnessed this too, the potency of your what we call the immortal elixir, the substance, your resonance. This is when we simplify things down to the resonance in this now moment. This is where I see crazy stuff. Like if you can think of anything in your mind, I've seen it. From gangrenous flesh going back to pink in color in 40 minutes, bones fused, open wounds sealed before my very eyes, tumors disappear. I've seen it all. And this is a normal day in the office. Most people come to me like, you're that guy. My grandma's in a coma. She's been told she's going to die tomorrow. And I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. I just had a conversation with her. She's like, what? Yeah, she'll be fine. Next day, the doctor goes, he woke up, the vitals are regulated. What's going on? And I had this conversation with Tom, and he's done this quite a few times himself. It's like the intention from your attention forms this unified state, which you guys offer in these potent tools as you put them. You're very humble about using that. They're just tools. Yeah, okay. Well, when you open the gateway to perfection, as we've just referred to many times over this conversation, be careful what you wish for, because that enlightenment will require a little bit of your realizing you aren't participating in returning to who you are. It's like there's a level of ascension. Energy potential seems to be something that people get caught up in. I had a Kundalini experience. I did this, I did that. I've witnessed 3 Kundalini experiencers that have levitated in my lifetime. 2 were in the Indonesian jungles. They were Kundalini masters, and one of them was one of my students. And all I did was give him the recipe when I was aware that he was at a stress adaptation level that he could maintain the inverted effects of drawing all that energy in and expelling it from his physical body. He could float. He can move this substance to being of no substance, and you would witness someone levitating. Now, people go, well, if you're able to do that, why aren't you doing it? Because I couldn't give a rat's behind as to whether I want to levitate or not. These are like developed sort of stress adaptations of realization. What people tend to get caught up in, and you can speak on this, guys, is they get obsessed with one aspect, like what I call sensory perception. They go, oh, I'm a clairvoyant, I'm a medium, I'm a healer, I'm a channeler. And with that, distracts you from your continual stress adaptation, and you stay stagnant in a certain level of development. And that doesn't mean that you're enlightened. A lot of these people that I come across that are energetic, sensitivity, healing, their personalities are very deficient. They're not enlightened. They're not speaking this selflessness and servitude that I believe the 3 of us are alluding to. We're working towards default is selflessness and servitude, where you cannot fight the true nature of who you are from that embodied state of now, which doesn't require your participation. Why don't you guys share that?
It's true, you
You
know.
get to be first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you definitely can't. Well, you can fight it, but you know what happens when you try to
Oh,
fight
it's
it.
going to be a bad day for that person that wants to fight it. I can promise you that.
Could you repeat that for
broke
us?
up.
I said it's going to be a bad day for the person that wants to fight that unified
Exactly.
state.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, and you know, I think that there's so much in the way that we've been groomed in the past that in order to get something, you have to force the energy. You have to make things happen. You have to, you know, that's not true. It's especially not true now. In fact, what I think is such a big shift is moving into a place of allowing and really being grateful for that place of allowing the energy. And when we understand the energy and we trust the energy and we recognize the principles of that energy, then in a lot of ways, that's when we can dance with it. It's not that we just sit there and let it happen, you know, and are unconscious about it. It's a very conscious process of playing with it. You know, I love to dance. I find that movement and dance is just something that brings me so much pleasure and balance in my life, and it's healing for me, and it's just wonderful. And it's just taking ourselves back into that process of play, allowing ourselves to interact with the universal principles in such a manner that surprising and wonderful things can happen. And you know, and I think that's you know, where the more that we come from that dynamic now, the more we're going to see amazing magical things happen. You know, we can look out in the world and go, oh crap, we've got so many things going on this planet in the way things are right now that it's just, you know, on one hand it can look like astonishing, and on the other hand the word astonishing could be elevating, it could be exciting, it could be opening up the opportunity for the brilliance to come forward. That awe can rise to the surface. And that's where I think we have an opportunity now in our process to back down away from the ways that we've done things before, and in a very joyful, playful, loving way, come back in and allow the wisdom to surface, allow the wisdom to have a space in the physical world to come together, to bring people together, to bring elements together. You know, the alchemical qualities of letting these things come together at their precise times, spaces, temperatures, resonances, whatever, so that we can actually embody and see and enjoy the fruits of this potential now. And you know, that also means that, you know, like getting back to the space of the divine womb, the Vesica, knowing with, you know, your analogy of the bellows, that we come back to that 0 point, because it brings us back to the place where we can take that breath and then expand out and expand in over and over again. And the Vesica, the divine womb, is a place like in architecture, that if you're going into a sanctuary, where you want to enter through first is the divine womb, the Vesica, and that's built into many of the architectural designs of cathedrals and sacred spaces, where you enter into this space first. where you can come there for that place of elevation, of it's that point of connection that we don't have to have any previously ordained idea of what it is that will happen, but just the preciousness of the moment, the choice of being here now and allowing ourselves to be in that divine ecstatic place. And I really value that, that we are moving into more of, as much as it may not look like it from some perspectives, but I believe we're moving more into a space of that beauty of the masculine and feminine energy that is going to be able to dance in a way where nobody is trying to tell the other what to do, but instead we are in awe of the co-creative process. And, now we'll dance and we'll play with that.
So, as you are speaking about creation and our experience being like the bellows, it's the breath that goes out and comes in. And this morning, I built a fire. It was cold outside. As I'm sitting in front of the fireplace, the stove, it's like the breath goes in and out, and I follow it until there's no in and there's no out. There's only the beingness, the presence of it. And as you were alluding to earlier, the space we're all in, when we're in that space, it's the oneness of all. So the only thing that we can do is be of service to all. That's the action in our lives, to be in service. And how we're being of service, that's the choice of unity. That's the choice of source. Because I might think I'm a sacred geometer, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. And in a moment, source can change all of that. That's not my purpose. That's not necessarily my service. It needs to be rediscovered moment by moment and breath by breath. I may not be doing this that much longer. I'll be doing something else though. And yet my doingness does not define me. It's the beingness behind the doingness. It's that space that we can rest into, that center point, which is possible to go in any direction at any moment. And again, it's service to all that really defines our opportunity. And so it's an incredible time to be alive, because more and more people are starting to open up to that opportunity. And that's why we are here, and the people we're interacting are here to support that process. It's a time of great change, and yet the change isn't outside of us, it's within us. Each moment, that's the opportunity for the transformation of this reality for the good of all, so that we can all have that experience of being, period.
I mean, you really can't make this stuff so potent. I mean, you referred to the primordial womb, as I've referred to it, the creation of all things. Within Taoism, we have a tool we call the Ryu, which is shaped in the form of a uterus. It accesses the universe. Oh, what a shock. And so we've been using that for thousands of years, this return to the same parallel of emergence of information. That density we're experiencing right now is another validation that we're all tuning to the same substance. And then the breath, this incredible insight to the breath, which we refer to as yin and yang, and the axis is that center point we call the Wu Ji, the what we call the forming of the diamond of perfection, because between the breath in and the breath out, you acquire the primordial state, and you form this diamond. As you hold your breath, you absorb the riches within Taoism, and that saturates the physical body at a subatomic level, and you start to vibrate and oscillate like a tuning fork through this absorption. And then, of course, you start breathing from consciousness, no longer the respiratory. It's an ascended state where, as you become more and more embodied, the breath is no longer required. Sometimes I have students that will literally be doing specific practices where they won't breathe for 5, 7, 10 minutes or more. The most I've ever focused on was upward of 17 to 18 minutes. And then it's like, hang on a second, that's not possible physically. Well, it's not physically, but I'm not breathing from physicality. I'm breathing from consciousness, the knowing. And this is so potent. When we speak on all these things and they all come back around and have this incredible unified state where, oh my goodness, I could see this here. I can see this here. Oh, I can see this here. And it doesn't matter how old or how new it is, it always returns us back to that potency. I'm just forever grateful to be breathing and experiencing and consciously knowing, because so many people I transition are like, oh my goodness, it's much brighter now. And that's as they move from this material state to their next re-up, they have that moment where they could be experiencing it right now, using your tools to bring them to that state of awareness that is, again, I always use the cautionary effects of that, because whenever someone puts in a portal that I imbue, and how I do that is there's 18 stones with a power center, and I put a copper piece that's shaped in the form of an infinity in the center of that with 3 elements, gold, silver, and platinum. And that supercharges anything. If people want to resuscitate their soil or regenerate and I mean, this again, guys, people don't realize all sacred spaces across the globe throughout humanity have had wisdom teachers like Gail and Gregory that have had the ability to be the tuning fork, the barometer, we call it body dowsing, where you can measure these frequencies, and you can actually put a place of worship, a church, a temple, whatever it is. They place them on these high points of potency so they can experience their spiritual enlightenment or whatever that's necessary. And what happens when you take the sacred geometry that you guys are sharing with the world, your power center is that tool. So you can all of a sudden have your tool in the middle of your house, and it's a plutonium dump site of spiritual awakening. That's what happens, right? It's potent. It doesn't stop. And I mean, this is something that becomes visceral, kinesthetic, somatic. And the more and more you sit in it, the more and more your body will show itself. And the trappings and the limitations of personality, as we always said, healing does not require your participation. Knowing who you are does not require your participation, but it's a level of ascended state of consciousness. And I like using the method of the madness. You need to cultivate these potencies by ascending through, identifying whether you want to water it down to psychometry, radiesthesia, synesthesia, clairvoyance, mediumship, all this stuff. You start honing your ability to find your attention and intention to form in this material state something it is beyond. And this is what these superpowers are being given to the experiencer through your teaching. It's I'm excited. I've been high as a kite for this whole conversation. I've been containing myself. I've been reverberating, and I'm like, just calm yourself, easy now.
Yeah,
but it's part of it.
And your word intention is so important, because when we come from pure intention, when Gregory was talking before about the good of all, when we come from that pure intention, then it's not just that we're looking to be titillated by this higher energy. It's definitely not that. And if you think that's what it is, you'll get an experience that will validate that. It is really the intention of connecting at the higher levels of who we are. All of the things that we've done, all of our tools, I love to talk about them in talking about, it is about staying connected with soul at the utmost levels that we can, because there's so much in this physical realm that is a distraction. The illusions are, just playing with us at, all over the place at all times to get our attention. And when we have that intention, that embodiment of that divine connection, then we can get blown all over the place and then come back to center again. And, we know our balance from where we go off, where we fall. When, it's always, a question that I sometimes say is, why is there such an imbalance of our weather? I mean, my gosh, in one area, they're getting like torrential rains and enormous floods. In another place, they're in absolutely extraordinary drought where the crops have dried up. Why do we have that here on this planet? And that is our teacher. That is how we come back, the breath, the bellows, the in, the out, all of these different extremes that we experience. They are the divine teachers, so that we can truly know that center point, that place where we come back, and that connection in the intention of resonating with the divine connection is really for me, it's the essence of the journey that I'm on.
She brought up an interesting point with the weather. We're so concerned, it's another thing that can drive us into fear, that is climate change. And climate change, I believe, is being affected by what human beings are doing physically with pollutants on the planet. Climate change is also cyclical. There's something going on that it would be happening beyond what we're doing as human beings. But I think what hasn't really entered our awareness that much yet is those are only smaller percentages of what are creating climate change, and that a very big part of it is human consciousness. The planet, the Divine Mother, everything sustaining us is growing, is moving to a higher vibrational level. And we need to come with it. I mean, excuse me, we can choose to grow with it or not. And so we are part of this whole issue of what's going on the planet, what we're feeding in to the whole nanosphere, the whole field of consciousness is something that we each need to reflect on within ourselves, and how we are feeding in to what is working and what is not working, and claim ownership for that, and shift what's going on within our beingness. It's an amazing time to be alive, and here we are. I don't know. There's so much we could keep sharing. It's really fun to understand that we are incredibly powerful beings, and that we speak of these things as tools, and it's a good word for them, because a tool is like a hammer that helps you leverage energy. And I could give you a hammer and you might crack walnuts with it. You might build a house. You might hit your thumb and it's not the hammer's fault. And when you're done building the house, the hammer didn't build the house. You built the house. Your intent working with all of these tools, that is the primary opportunity for you to exercise. And so you'll experience energy working with these, but what will you do with that energy? Where will it come into helping you evolve what no longer serves you and what you can now take into your beingness to allow you to expand that aspect of your beingness, that love aspect? And so it's a technology, it's a tool, but always, these things, sometimes people think they give their power away. I guess they could give their power away to tools, but that's a choice. Really, a tool is very empowering when you see you're the one, like the hammer that cracks the walnut, cracks your thumb, or hits the nail on the head. And your expertise, your practice is what allows you to hit the nail on the head again and again and again until you build something of a transcendent, transpondent, just beautiful expression of your beingness and your intent.
Again, I mean, you guys are just like bam, bam, bam. All this stuff is just happening, and I love being able to experience the things that I experienced and then see it embedded into other paths of self-realization, that it mirrors off each other and returns us to this perfection. It's like, as I put it, your Sherlock to your Watson is taking human condition and going through that labyrinth and coming out the other side as a human being with everything. That potency is so enriching, and yet it falls away, the trappings of the finite intellect, the bankrupt mind that does nothing but repeat the same things over and over again. You move the needle too intuitive. You realize you blend the two together and you merge conscious and unconscious and form this realization. I mean, you even mentioned the 0 point, which I find fascinating, and I've spoken to many people, physicists, friends of mine, and that 0 point, we have an ancient ritual where we activate the middle dantian, and it's called the death of a star and the rising of the red phoenix, which is the spirit and energy that protects your center point, which is along the spectrum. If someone refers to the rainbow body, you are talking about the center point. This is your center point through the rainbow. This is it right here. And so the phoenix rises through this alchemical process where you're merging the sun and the earth, revealing the primordial mother and the energy potential. This is then the death of a star, rising of the red phoenix, and accessing what we call black hole energy. Now, black hole energy is a really interesting thing that a lot of physicists are contemplating, and it's still very conceptual, but there's enough people that say they have receipts these days that they would claim that, the spooky action of Albert Einstein's psychotic episode 100 years ago would say that, hey, this is the substance that is the super glue that would give relevance or some type of validation of the entanglement. Max Planck unit of self-realization, whatever you want to call it. The 0 point is this unified state that makes it possible that things are instantaneous beyond, light speed. You have the eclipse, because once you get this electromagnetism and hit the event horizon of a black hole, all bets are off. It's not a measurable frequency. Sure, it would be called a scalar wave or a 0 point. I find it's fascinating. And when you do the actual alchemical process of that cultivation, you pop off like a bottle of champagne, and all of a sudden that substance is accessible to you. we keep going back to that same point. I honestly, for the audience, we could keep going on, but unfortunately, I believe we have a time restraint. I don't want to keep you here forever, but we could.
We could.
Well, we could come back.
Yes, I would love you to come back. I would
Sure.
love you.
We would love that.
Yeah.
But I have to share this vision that I had when you were talking about the rainbow body and the center point, that, you know, because we exist on this 3D plane here, whenever we view a rainbow, it has two ends. But have you ever seen a rainbow when you're in an airplane? It's a perfect circle with the center point being, you know, there with the rainbow moving around it. So when we move out of the constraints of this physical reality, a rainbow is the perfect image of a circle, and it has its center point. Oh,
No,
there we are.
You guys are resonating at a too high a level. You're trying to kill my my high tech here.
I don't know. Did you heard the center point of the rainbow? I love thinking of rainbows like
Can you hear me?
like soap bubbles.
We hear you.
We hear
Can you hear
you.
us?
Yeah. Again, I'm going to hold you to coming back on the channel.
Okay.
We'll come back.
I definitely want you to come back, and we'll go deeper into everything that you're teaching. I'm going to put your social sphere and interweb under this podcast, and I want everyone within my stratosphere, students, disciples, 126s, subscribers. Hang on, that 126 part, don't get all weirded out like it's a cult. It's actually an app I developed that helps people become enlightened within 9 weeks. Poof. So don't get concerned by that like I'm indoctrinating you into some cult. This is all part of going out and experiencing all the sacred geometry that is being crafted into these beautiful tools that you can actually access it instantaneously over the interweb. I imagine what's the fastest, speedy express delivery someone wants to get enlightened? FedEx 24 hours.
I'm going to have Gregory go back to the slide that has our book, Sacred Geometry, the Universal Language of Divine Alignment.
Excellent.
And if you go to our website, iconnecttoall.com, so it's the letter I, the word connect, the number 2, all, all.com. And then if you do /chapter, it'll take you to a page where you can download our first chapter of the book, which is What is Consciousness? So that's a great place to start. Our website has links to the different things that we've been creating over the years. And that would be a wonderful place to get started.
I already sampled it. It's definitely 100% legitimate. It is getting me high as a kite once again. Woo! Wow.
It's fun.
Again, one last question before you leave me. What is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
Well, that's an interesting one. What is my definition?
I've usually let you talk first.
But you want to go first?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I will.
Well, my definition of spiritual consciousness is the validation that we are more than what we know. And as multidimensional beings who have access to our spiritual level, our soul, the soul vibration, we are unity. We are everything. We are oneness. We are God. And most important, we are love. And that to me is really what I strive for in my embodiment of spiritual consciousness.
Wow.
So you've mixed two words here, spiritual consciousness. To me, everything is consciousness. That is the fill-in word for what people say God, unity, source. it's consciousness. And that's what is supporting every aspect of reality. And all the different dimensional levels, all the different densities, which are different ways of working with consciousness and unity and love. But spirituality, that's our personal pathway into consciousness. Each of us has our unique pathway to grow in consciousness, and that is our spiritual pathway. That's our spiritual opportunity. That's our personal understanding of how we are expanding our consciousness.
Amen to that, my friend. Wow, I've done over 400 podcasts, never got the same answer. As we refer to it, we are all facets of the diamond of perfection. You say tomato, I say tomato. It all comes back to the same place of self-realization. Wow. I just want to thank you guys. I just want to thank you guys.
Thank you.
I can't thank you enough for you accepting my invitation. Furthermore, remembering the bond that I already had with you in some past life. It feels right. It feels more than right. And I'm very grateful that you're here right now. So thank you again. I want everyone to go out and check out all your material. And furthermore, I imagine through that portal you have workshops and other things that add to the sacred geometry tools, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I'm not going to speak for you. Maybe you don't. Maybe you will after this. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, we've done several classes that are recorded on our website.
Excellent.
And our YouTube channel. Lots and lots of information.
Fantastic. So again, thank you guys. I'm very grateful for both of you. I can't thank you enough for sharing your time with me today.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.